what are maybe like the patterns or the ways that she showed up in that relationship that enabled her to open up as much as she did so she can bring those behaviors into her next relationship and create as much success in the next relationship as she had with Gerry. What a beautiful way to look at a breakup. What a beautiful way to reflect on what was ultimately a really wonderful relationship.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're back again this week for another Bachelor recap. Today we're recapping episode 7 of the Golden Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise season 9. For those of you who don't know us, we're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially all of the Bachelor shows. So if you like this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. Okay, I'm so excited that Kelly is back this week. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on the Golden Bachelor, because we were able to see who Gerry chose, and I was so surprised. We had a woman tell all. It was probably one of the most wholesome tell-all episodes that's ever existed on the franchise, and that's what I love about the Golden Batch. It's constantly breaking and dispelling, how the show has typically done things before, but it was really cute. All of the women came back on stage. Yeah. But really, what the entire episode is leading towards was him being on stage with the person that he said goodbye to. And we see who it is. It's a surprise, but it's Faith. She's the one that he sends home. And I've been dying to hear, what did you think about that? Like, what did you feel about him choosing her? Did you suspect that was going to be the case?
I was surprised in a certain way, but then I also got the feeling, based on the fact that they had such a prolonged, extended lead up to finally revealing who went home, because I think most people watching the season and watching this scene probably thought Theresa was the person who should go home, because it felt like Gerry's relationship with Faith and Leslie just felt more substantial, but because there was such a extended buildup, it made me think it's probably Faith going home, because otherwise this would be obvious, right? So it would be so obvious that Theresa is leaving. So to me, I was kind of anticipating Faith would leave at this moment, even though I don't think she should have, based on the way their goodbye went, and more specifically the way their reunion went at this Women Tell All. You could just really tell these two really did have a connection. They really cared about each other. The fact that when Faith and Gerry see each other for the first time ever on that stage, the way that they come together, they just both immediately start crying and hugged it out. I was a little bit taken aback by the amount of emotion they were both showing. It felt like this is something that is so much more real and raw than what we usually see on this franchise, and definitely on Women Tell All. It's just usually so surface level. People will go home and, that you'll see the runners up there, but it's not always such a emotionally tense moment. But I felt like Faith and Gerry really felt, you could really feel that emotion there. That was something very intense, and the fact that Gerry himself was crying, even though he's probably happily engaged to someone right now, but he was crying and saying just the sweetest things to Faith and really validating how real their relationship was. To me, that was such a mark of how real the relationship was. It was such a mark of wow, this is real, but also a mark of, wow, Gerry is someone who can choose somebody else, know who he's going to be with, but still extend so much care to the person that he is leaving. It was such a beautiful example of how you can be really warm and loving with someone, even if you're not going to be with them. This is something that you and I talk about all the time, Julie. It's people kind of have this weird take with breakups that someone has to be in the wrong, or if we're not going to be together, then I don't have to care about you anymore. I'm going to be a little bit withheld and removed from you because now we're parting ways. But this was such a beautiful moment to me. I was so delighted, and my heart felt so full watching the way that they were just so much, so willing to be in that feeling together of wow, we really loved each other. We were really into it, and it's really sad that we're not going to be together. And we can acknowledge that without minimizing, whatever the relationship is that Gerry is in. So I actually just loved this moment so much. I was surprised Faith and him didn't make it all the way.
I know.
But I don't know. Personally, I think even Gerry was a little bit like, oh, hot damn. Like, if I wasn't with the girl I'm with, I could totally still be with this girl. Like, that was the energy of this interaction, at least to me.
There was a maturity that him and Faith stepped into in that conversation, which is we can still have feelings for each other. And Faith might still have unresolved feelings for Gerry because she was touching him on stage and she kept apologizing. She's like, oh my God, I'm just forgetting because, you know, our dynamic before the breakup was so touchy-feely that she's not used to. I mean, he's probably an engaged man or he's happily with his partner. But I loved that Gerry was emotionally aware and mature enough to say, even though I'm with my person, that doesn't negate the love that I had for you. And the person that he's with would ideally really respect Gerry for having that quality because there's a reason why, you know, he is so compatible with so many women. And it's truly because of his gentleness and his intelligence and how he's approaching this. So him and I keep wanting to say Theresa, but it's not Theresa. Him and Faith were able to have like a really great closure conversation on stage, but I could feel longing from Faith's side. And I think that part of the reason why Gerry was so broken up was because he did do a no-no. He did promise her family that he was going to protect her. He made very subtle body language clues in terms of like nodding when his sister was like, oh, you're going to choose my sister at the end. And he was just making these really subtle gestures where I think he just got completely caught up in the moment.
I honestly had so much respect for Gerry in this moment because you could see how devastated he was to have done that, to have broken that promise to her family and to have hurt Faith in the way that he did. You could really tell that he takes his commitments seriously and that he has so much empathy for other people. You could really see that his heart was he was feeling the pain that Faith was feeling. And even though he was the one who broke up with her, he was so grieved by the pain that she had to go through from that. Like, he was really feeling it. And to me, it spoke so highly of him. I just felt like, wow, this is a guy who's really able to care for people even when there's no strings attached, even when he's not going to get anything from Faith from showing her care, he's still going to show that care anyway. I really respected that a lot. And even the way that he agonized about kind of like leading her on or whatever, I don't know if that's the right word, but like the way, like you said, that he kind of gave these clues and said, I love you to her and kind of made it seem like he could end up picking her. The way that he apologized for that, or not apologized, but he like acknowledged that would make it all the more harder for her. He said something along the lines of like, I kept thinking about all those I love yous I had said to you, and I feel like I built something up just to break it in an instant. And I think about that all the time in terms of like in the early stages of dating. You know, we talk about how you have to be a little bit careful what you promise to people and what you say to people, because obviously it feels so good to lean into the moment. It feels so good to just say I love you, to just say that I could really see a future with you. I think there's something here. It feels so good to lean in and really be just like fantasizing about what could be, because in that moment you get all of those, that endorphin rush, that oxytocin, you get all those good feelings that are like connecting you. But then, you step out of it and then you think clearly about whether or not you're actually going to be with that person. But one of the ways that we can show care for the people that we're dating is just being a little bit judicious about the things that we promise. And Gerry clearly acknowledged that, like, he maybe leaned in further than he maybe should have, and there might have been a way that he could have protected Faith's heart by not dropping that I love you when he did, not getting carried away in the moment and giving all of that affirmation when he actually wasn't sure yet about who he was going to pick. And the fact that Gerry was able to acknowledge that, I respected it. I just really respected the amount of emotional awareness and emotional intelligence that he has.
You said this in one of the last seasons that we did in Bachelor in Paradise, but I think about it a lot. Just because you're having a really big feeling, you don't have to tell someone I love you. It's like you're grabbing at the words of, what is it? I feel so amazing. I think I could have this future with you. I like you so much. And it's almost like you want to grab onto those words to almost solidify and affirm that what you and I are feeling, we're on the exact same page. But at that stage of the season, it is a really big promise that he's making, because she was completely blindsided. Because he is so sincere, I really do believe that people are taking him at face value. Anything that he's saying, they're not parsing it through. Do I have any room for doubt? They know that they are one of three at the very end, whatever. But at the same point, they also understand that Gerry is being very intentional with what he's saying. And I know that he did love Faith, but I feel like if he was okay with disappointing her a little bit, or saying, I love you, but I have connections with other women as well, just something to have cushioned the blow.
Yeah.
Maybe Faith and her family would have been shielded from the blast radius of the repercussion of that decision, you know? Like, I think that would have been the way to go, because it's valid. He was in love with Faith, and he had feelings of love for Faith, and he wanted to tell her that. But adding another statement to have some realism to the situation would have been a step higher of what Gerry could have done. And not everybody is going to occupy this in dating, because dating, we're kind of like emotionally ricocheting between like, what are we saying? How do we want to communicate? All of these things. As a dating coach, I think that could have been the extra thing that he would have done that would have helped alleviate some of her heartbreak. Not all of it, because she's in a lot of pain, and I don't know if there's anything Gerry could have really done to have alleviate that besides choosing her. But it might have helped her family in terms of them understanding that he did have other people, and he was a little bit unsure, and there are other people that he's actively exploring, because I don't know if he did that as well with them.
I mean, that moment where they were sitting with her family, and he turns to her, looks her in the eye, and just says, I love you. I was like, oh, Gerry, you gotta be careful. You can't just drop that in front of all these kids. The grandkids are there. I'm like, oh my goodness, you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. I mean, it was such a beautiful moment. It really was so sweet. And if it was gonna be her, this would be totally fine. But it's like, if you weren't sure, you gotta be a little careful with that, because those are the kind of moments that, I mean, he said that he still reflects back on those moments, and I'm sure she does too, of thinking back to those moments and thinking like, it felt like he was gonna pick me. How could I have been so wrong about that? I like let myself be vulnerable, because he kind of made me think that it was safe to be vulnerable. And she said that several times to him too, that like she felt safe with him. That was like a big thing that she felt with him. And so, you know, I wouldn't say Gerry did anything wrong per se, but that is, I think, it's something that can help in many situations in dating. In so many situations, it really does help to have just like that little level of consideration of, what am I saying, and are these words going to still be true tomorrow? Will I be able to keep these promises tomorrow? And just because I'm feeling something really big right now doesn't mean that I should promise the world in this moment, because what I'm feeling in this moment is separate from what I'm going to be able to give in the coming weeks, months, years, for the rest of my life in the case of Gerry. And so I think he did get a little carried away by saying as much as he did to Faith. And, you know, that's just like, that's the takeaway. The thing is, the beautiful thing is the two of them still clearly have so much love and care for each other. Obviously, neither of them has any kind of grudge to bear. And that's the thing that I really loved about this scene between the two of them. Even Faith, she says something while she was like explaining her, I think, healing process after the breakup, that the question that she was asking herself was, what was it about this person that made me able to open up my heart for the first time in so long? What was it about this person that made me be able to get there? And I thought that was so beautiful. It's like, that was such a good way to reflect on that breakup. It was like, I felt like she was like really asking the right questions, instead of looking at the breakup and being like, what's wrong with me? Am I broken? You know, people do this often after a breakup. You know, you kind of assume that if someone decides that they don't want to be with you, then that must be evidence that you are somehow unworthy or unlovable or whatever it may be. Like, you kind of make it about yourself and something that's wrong with you, or you do the opposite. You like kind of like lash out at the person who broke up, but then you're like, well, I didn't want to be with them anyway. They had all these problems. Kind of like what Kat did with Tanner, right? As soon as Tanner broke up with Kat in Bachelor in Paradise, she starts like making fun of his kissing and saying that she like was never that into it. She like turns on him. We usually do one of those two things in a breakup, But I loved how Gerry and Faith approached this breakup with so much warmth. And Faith is just looking at, what can she learn about herself from what happened with Gerry? What are the things she can learn about life? What are the things what are maybe like the patterns or the ways that she showed up in that relationship that enabled her to open up as much as she did, so she can bring those behaviors into her next relationship and create as much success in the next relationship as she had with Gerry. What a beautiful way to look at a breakup. What a beautiful way to reflect on what was ultimately a really wonderful relationship. So kudos to these two. I just loved this scene so much.
I'm sad that she went home because I felt like they were just such a compatible couple. But it's clear that Gerry knows what he wants, and it's Theresa or Leslie. I think that Faith will make some man very, very lucky whenever she finds her person. And I hope that her experience of Gerry has opened her up to this really soft experience of hope and optimism, and that you can find someone that makes you feel so safe and so held. Because I do think that, Gerry is more of the ideal for people to move towards. He's just such a lovely energy to date.
Several of these women seemed like they were still hung up on him. Faith, Joan, I just kept getting the sense that Joan was like, oh my God, he's here now. And I felt like she was still in her feelings for Gerry. Even Ellen, I was like, man, all of these women seem like they're still like kind of hung up on Gerry, but good. Like you said, it teaches you what you want and what to look for. So yeah, I don't know. I was so happy with this women tell all. I feel like often women tell alls are so snarky and just about like digging up the drama from the season, but I like that this episode wasn't about that at all. Now the big question is just, who is Gerry gonna choose? Like, who is he gonna pick at the end of the day? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts, Julie, about Leslie or Theresa?
I mean, you know that I love Leslie. I've always loved her in terms of being this really amazing foil to Gerry. But now that he has sent home Faith, it does throw my pick off a little bit. One thing I did read was that Gerry is supposedly a very staunch Catholic, and I know that Leslie is Jewish. And they haven't talked about religion, but now that I'm thinking about it, and you brought this up, Kelly, Theresa and Gerry are very similar. They've both been widowed. They both are ride or dies for their family. They're both this really soft energy. She's a little bit more of like someone to nurture, and he's such a big nurturer. And it's evident that Theresa would do anything for the person that she's with, and she will give everything to the person that she's with. So maybe that's what he's wanting to step into, and maybe Leslie is just a really fun person for him to date but not build a life with. Because I thought that maybe he would kind of, want to be with someone that made him feel really exciting and, offered those same qualities, but had all of these really interesting edges to their personality that activated different parts of who he was. But I'm thinking more that Theresa's going to be the match, because I was really surprised that he chose to keep her. I did not think that was going to be the case. I for sure thought it was going to be between Faith and Leslie, and then Leslie was going to take it. I think it's going to be Theresa, which I don't know how I feel about, because I don't really get her as a person yet. But when I did see her family, it changed my mind a little bit about her. It doesn't change how she handled the Kathy conflict, but it gave a lot of, it rounded out her personality a lot more, and I can see her getting along with his family. But I think that when his family meets them, that intel will be super, super important for Gerry, and he's going to take that and run with it. But what did you think? Who do you think he's going to pick?
I mean, that's a really good case for Theresa. Your back. That analysis sounds really good to me. I've really ricocheted. I mean, I've flung back and forth between who I think he's gonna pick, because I was on the Ellen train for so long, and then when Ellen went home, I was like, maybe he really does want something different, so it's probably gonna be more like a Leslie. And then the fact that Faith went home, I agree, it kind of like makes me question it again. Now I'm like, maybe he is interested in more of like, well, now the question is between Theresa, the person who is maybe the most compatible, similar to him in his current lifestyle, versus Leslie, who would be more of like a wild card, a way to access a different part of his personality. So now this is the question. And Faith was somewhere in between those two. So now we're going to find out what Gerry is actually looking for based on who he picks. And so you're right. I think the meeting with his family will give a lot of data or information or insight into it. But honestly, I'm lost on it. Like, I'm very confused. His choices have confused me in a way for what a wonderful guy he seems to be, what a sweet, thoughtful, empathetic, emotionally aware dater that he is. You would think it would be easier to
tell,
read him, like to understand like what he's looking for. But it's funny. He surprises me actually in every episode, like the choices that he makes. And so I don't know. I can't really say. I am inclined for the same reasons you are to lean toward Theresa, but I would love to be happily surprised and see him pick someone like Leslie. I will say for viewers watching, I think there might be spoilers out about this, about who he picks. I don't know. Julie, I think you don't know either, so we don't actually know who he's going to pick. This is a spoiler-free podcast, so we are going to find out in the finale like all of you. So let's see. Don't drop spoilers below if you know. Just leave your thoughts. We want to know what you guys think. Who do you think he will pick, or who do you think he should pick, maybe is the question. Who would you pick for him if you were able to pick for Gerry? Let us know down below in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Okay, so for Bachelor in Paradise now, as always, this is such a whiplash. We go from like the most sweet, wholesome show, Golden Bachelor, into Bachelor in Paradise. And it's like, I'm enjoying Golden Bachelor so much. Even the Women Tell All episode, I usually hate that episode, but I thought this was so wholesome. I cried like 3 different times. Then we get into Bachelor in Paradise, and I feel like, to be honest, I am so over it. Like, I'm not enjoying this season at all. I just feel like because Kat is the focus of the season. Clearly, she's like the star. Even though she's being painted in a poor way, she's like the star. She's the one who's getting all of the screen time. All the storylines are kind of revolving around Kat, and it's just unpleasant to watch. It's just not fun to watch someone who is treating others so poorly, repeatedly doing the same things over and over again, and facing no consequences for it. It's just annoying to watch this storyline. As always, I don't know who Kat is in real life, but at least what we're seeing, it's like we're basically seeing the villain win. Like that's what this season feels like it's about. And Kat is just constantly being rewarded for her behavior by getting validation from like John Henry or whoever is next in line after him. It's just not fun to watch and not fun to root for. And then even the other cast of characters, I'm kind of not, I don't know, I'm finding it hard to root for anyone. Like, there's a lot of people on the beach who kind of have like a bad energy right now in the scenes. Like, a lot of people are kind of rallying around Kat, which is also like a bit of a
so weird
turn off. Like Kylie, Mercedes, Avon, like all of these people are kind of like egging her on a little bit. And I don't know, it's a weird look. I'm just a little baffled by it. Even like Olivia, who's like Kat's like counterpart right now, she's also not looking the best ever. So I'm having trouble. I just don't know who to root for. I don't know how to feel. There's just like a lot of bad actors, and even like the people that I usually like Jess, Blake, Tyler, all of these people are kind of being a little messy. I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about this season. And then meanwhile, you get someone like Rachel, who is such a sweetheart. You know, she's been our baby girl for so long, and she keeps getting passed over, disrespected left and right. I'm so upset about Brayden dumping Rachel. Sorry, I'm throwing it all in here, but like it's just like a general
mishmash.
Feeling.
That's what the show is like. There's absolutely no thread. It's just little bits of couples where you don't root for them. I'm not rooting for Avon and Kylie. I'm not rooting for Tyler and Mercedes. I'm not rooting for Jess and Blake. And then I'm seeing Rachel, which you're totally right. She is so open and receptive to this experience, and Brayden completely disrespected her.
I wasn't here last week to talk about like that Becca date, but that girl Becca, she seemed wonderful and sweet, super cute, but just, I mean, the connection between Brayden and Rachel seemed so real and substantive. Like even Brayden says this after Becca ends up going home, that he feels a little bit embarrassed that he threw off his connection with Rachel to pursue Becca, when clearly the Rachel connection was so substantive and the Becca connection was very surface level. I mean, baby girl was like hot, definitely like hot commodity. I get it. It's like very hard to say no to a tantra date with Becca. I get it, but like,
all gotta do it. Do what's best for you.
Of course, we gotta do it, but like the fact that he was like, oh my God, this connection is it blew my date with Rachel out of the water. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know.
Just admit that you were attracted to her, Brayden, because that's really what it was. You just thought she was hot.
If he had just said that, like, baby girl is super hot, super cute, I have to do this, I would get it.
Respect,
but, like,
yeah.
I just, the fact that he somehow thought that connection was deeper than his connection with Rachel, come on, Brayden. Come on. I just was so upset by it. And granted, in this episode, we didn't get to see Brayden and Becca interact at all after the date. Maybe there was more depth there that we didn't see. We also didn't see what happened between Brayden and Rachel after Brayden came home from his date. Like, there was so many scenes that I feel like we didn't get to see the interactions. We also didn't see what happened between Jess and Blake after Blake came home from his date with Genevieve. We didn't see what happened, like, Jess and Tyler made out. No one talked about it. Like, it was just as if it didn't happen. Jess is back with Blake. Tyler is back with Mercedes. I don't know. There's so much missing information that I'm just upset at everyone. I don't know what to say. There's no, like, resolution. Everyone's kind of, like, acting out, and there's no resolution. So I'm, like, having trouble even really analyzing this, especially because there's so much missing info, too, that I can't really make sense of anyone's behavior, and I also can't root for anyone. So I don't know what to do watching this season.
Because we want to enjoy the mess, because the one person that we do get to follow is who you just said. It's Kat. And Kat is the most frustrating person to follow from a dating coach perspective. We're trying to analyze the show. We're trying to extract some kind of semblance of, like, how can we cobble together some, like, dating feedback or, like, insight that can help the way that our audience is dating or the way that they're seeing the show. And Kat is getting herself in the exact same situations again and again. She picked a person like John Henry who doesn't question her behavior. And I found it to be extremely frustrating when he was like, I'm not going to judge her based on what she did of Tanner and Brayden. Think a little bit about it, man. Just have a little bit of critical thought about why two of her exes don't have the best opinion of her. Of course, you don't have to judge someone for their past actions because people can change. But it does say a lot because it has only been a week and a half and you're seeing someone very up close. I think John Henry made a critical error of being, once again, like Brayden got caught up in Becca's looks. He got really caught up in Kat's looks, and her pretty privilege is really carrying her through, and it's getting her in these
right through.
I mean, all of these guys are just outside of Tanner, you know, they've been kind of wrapped around her finger in some way. They're just talking about dumb stuff, and they're using that as an opportunity for a connection, and that's so frustrating to watch because despite Olivia being so messy, she does have some kind of feeling for John Henry. She thinks he's amazing. She thinks he's great. And she said it on camera, off camera, so that feeling is consistent. Whereas I feel like Kat, it just seems like she found him to be really attractive. She really wanted to be with someone and be physically attracted to someone. And all of her friends are stirring the pot and kind of like pushing her to do that. Kylie has not been coming across well to me. She has some really mean girl energy towards Olivia. And I understand that you're not going to get along with everybody, but I think to try so hard to actively cause pain towards someone, that's a weird look. That's, I don't know, it feels like the beach is divided a little bit, and you can see that the people that Olivia get along with do not get along well with that other group. And that's a little bit playing into the way that other people are dating and the way that they're forging connections on the beach. But this season has not felt like anyone's fallen in love. I don't even feel it for Aaron B and Eliza, which is maybe the only successful couple.
We should talk about those two. But just to follow up on your point, I'm so with you that, like, the beach feels divided around, like, I guess some people are over Kat and some people are, like, kind of rallying behind her, so the beach is divided for that reason.
So
to
weird.
Your point about, like, Kat and her pretty privilege, I honestly think John Henry is kind of actually the perfect match for her in a lot of ways because he doesn't question things, right? He's just kind of, you know,
you're right.
He was like, wow, we're connecting on such a deep level. I'm like, are you?
What are you
I got
talking
to see a different
about?
side of Kat. What side did you see? Her tongue? Like, I don't understand. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he's making it seem like they have such a... And granted, once again, like, maybe there are scenes we didn't see of their conversations, but, like, To me, I'm
What
just
is
like,
it?
the man is not questioning anything. He does seem like someone who is a lot more go with the flow, maybe, or like just doesn't
He's
have.
gonna let her do her stuff.
Exactly. I don't think he has like maybe the highest emotional awareness, intelligence standards of all time versus like someone like Brayden and Tanner. As soon as they caught wind of Kat's bullshit, they were both like, ooh. Like they both kind of like backed away from it. I think that John
You're right.
Henry, he's like seen the way Kat has behaved on the beach and he's still chill with it. And so I kind of actually think that maybe this is a perfect match. I'm very sensitive to this. It's such a turnoff for me watching people just like be chill with people who are kind of behaving poorly. Like it's to me that really like grosses me out a little bit. So for John Henry to just be chill with everything Kat is doing, I'm just a little bit like, all right, just get together and get off my screen. That's where I'm at with those two. And Olivia, I mean, and this is the other thing, like John Henry's two options were Kat and Olivia, both really, really like spark plugs at the beach. They're two people who are very explosive in a lot of ways. So it does seem like John Henry is into women with big personalities. And just, so if he wants to be with Kat, go be with Kat. I can kind of see that all just working out. And honestly, I'm ready for a page turn in terms of the focus of this season. That takes us to Aaron B and Eliza, because this was actually an interesting storyline to me, a very interesting one for the show to focus in on. It was at the start of the episode, but it was kind of a bit of a through line of the episode, which was like Aaron B has an ex who has been reaching out to Charity and Charity's family about their relationship and saying that Aaron, I think, had a girlfriend. It was a little confusingly explained. I was a little confused by exactly what's happening, but I think Aaron was like dating two people at the same time, or he had a girlfriend while he was on Charity's season. It was a little hard to understand exactly what was happening here, but there's some accusations of like two-timing, essentially. The ex-girlfriend has reached out directly to Charity, so Charity has been in contact, and Charity came down the beach to kind of explain what was going on. To me, I was a little surprised, or I guess I would say grossed out, frankly, by the way Aaron was talking about this ex. He kept calling her like, oh, my disgruntled ex is trying to like smear my name. It was like that kind of vibe. And I get a bad vibe from someone who trash talks their ex so aggressively. I mean, we just talked about like why the Gerry Faith thing was so wholesome and beautiful to watch. This Aaron dynamic is like a great counterpoint. Like if you're like, to describe your ex in that way just makes me think like, what really went down there? Like, why are you speaking so poorly of someone that you were once really connected with and theoretically, had a strong bond with? Why are you speaking so poorly of this person and being so dismissive of the pain that this person clearly felt? Like, whatever is going on with that person, this ex is hurt by something Aaron did, and Aaron doesn't take any accountability for it. He's just kind of like she's just disgruntled. He's like dismissing her feelings, basically calling her like a crazy ex. And I don't know, it's kind of a bad look. This whole thing kind of turned me off from Aaron quite a bit. It's not what the ex said as much as it is how he has handled and discussed the situation that really turned me off, which ironically, that this was Charity's advice to Eliza, which was pay attention to the way Aaron talks about the situation. It's less about like the details of what did or didn't happen and more about like how is Aaron currently talking about the situation. And it's funny to me that Eliza was somehow comforted by the things that Aaron was saying about the situation versus I was a little bit like, I don't know what happened in the past, but the way he's talking about the situation, that to me is what the red flag is. It's the way he's handling it and kind of trash talking his ex. That's the part of it that is making me feel, I don't know, I would think twice before just like leaning into that relationship.
Aaron B and Eliza being the most connected couple on the beach, don't really see them lasting, but just like Kat and John Henry, maybe that's the theme of the season, like they're just mid connections that are trying to make it work and get in engagements. Because I totally agree that, well, first, I love how Charity subverted this perspective of her coming on the beach and just wanting to throw off Aaron's whole situation. That's not the case. She was providing clarity, and she was super helpful in illuminating her experience with Aaron and his exes and how she was seeing the whole situation. Once again, a total class act in how to emotionally respond and what to really look for in that conversation. Because I think that advice that she had about Aaron showed and revealed how Aaron is maybe has a lot more culpability than he's even really admitting to. I don't understand his ex's situation. What I do understand is that the way that he talks about them makes it seem like they're trying to hurt him, as if he's the one that is being attacked from all of these misunderstandings and they want these things from him. It's not well-rounded, and I always find it to be a huge red flag if you're talking so poorly about your ex, but you can't talk about how you also went wrong in the relationship. Because if you're not together, it does take two people. And even if someone was so awful to you, it doesn't mean there's something that's happening in the relationship that maybe you were, because we're not talking about abuse. We're talking about two people that had some weird, situation with each other, and maybe there was cheating, maybe there was dishonesty, maybe there was manipulation. It's not like there's one person perpetuating that towards Aaron. So I felt like the way that he spoke about that was really indicative of him and his emotional immaturity. And it was so weird to watch Eliza obviously have some hesitation, but then be won over by breakfast sent by production. And I don't like those gestures after her fight. I think it's so lame that if you buy something for somebody or you sweep it under the rug, it's almost completely resolved, and it's not.
You said this about like Eliza and Aaron. I feel the same way. Like I'm like a little bit like mid about them. Like Eliza didn't handle her season last year the best, and now here she is with Aaron, who I also didn't love him on his season, and now he's doing this weird thing, like kind of trash talking his ex and not taking any accountability. Honestly, I'm a little bit like, maybe they're the perfect match because they are both not the best daters of all time. But they're also not, I don't think either of them are horrible people, but like they're not the best daters of all time from what we've seen. And so maybe that actually makes them a really good match. The fact that she was won over by that breakfast with the little note, like that stuff to me, I was the same way. I'm like, it's so icky. Tacky. Like it makes me cringe. But she was like, she was like reading the note aloud in the moment interview. I was like, oh my God, they're perfect for each other. Because that was also my thing with him on Charity season. He was so tacky and cringy and saying all these
forced,
like cheesy
phony
lines.
Yes.
But she loves that stuff. I think she's like, I love a declaration. I love a guy who just declares his love for me. I'm like, all right, well, then maybe this is the perfect match. Like, maybe this is a good pairing. And then to your point of like, the way that he wouldn't take accountability of the ex situation, it reminded me actually of on Charity's season, he kept like being like, oh, Brayden is just toxic. He's creating this toxic situation in the house, toxic people. He kept throwing that word around. And then when he described his relationship with his ex, he was like, that was a toxic relationship. And like, it was a mess. I just ended it. And it was like, you can't just call something toxic and remove yourself from it and just say like, it was all them. They're always the problem. Like it shows a lack of self-awareness and accountability, to your point, Julie. And the fact that it kind of mirrored the way he was talking about Brayden, that to me, I don't know. It's just another thing about Aaron B that makes me feel a little bit squishy about him. But I don't know. I guess it's fine for Eliza. And if she's into it, then ship it off, whatever.
They're both so compatible. If we think about Aaron B and Eliza, and we think about Kat and John Henry, I truly hope these two couples do not get engaged. And we're not seeing a lot on TV. A lot of it is highly edited. It's just not, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion as a viewer, a little bit of dating coach as well, but they're not going to be successful. There's no way. This was the third rose ceremony. I think it's only been a week and a half of them being on the beach. This is not how it's supposed to feel when you're in a relationship with someone, when you're not being challenged, when the other person isn't being honest with who they are and what they've owned up to in the past. They're both not really doing that in these like new fortified relationships that might now be. there's only 2 weeks of Bachelor in Paradise left. So like these two couples, we're going to see them be put through the paces. And if they develop and have a deeper connection, I just genuinely hope that they don't get engaged, because I don't see it being successful. I see them being together for the typical amount that they need to be together. But this is a relationship where they're both using each other, of not being able to face up to their stuff, or not being able to grow, not being able to, it's not like the kind of relationship you really want to be in when you're wanting to marry someone. I would hope that the person that I'm with will look at me when I'm doing something that isn't serving me or is hurting other people, and they can tell me and communicate that information, and I'm not going to be offended. I'll be able to listen and take what they're saying above board. I don't see that happening of these two relationships, so therefore I can't root for it.
I mean, that's a really great ideal to aspire towards. I would not say that that's something that I would guess Eliza, Aaron B, Kat, or John Henry is looking for from a relationship, right? Like, that's the ideal. You want to be with someone who's like that, and you want to be that kind of person. But I don't think any of these 4 people are actually looking for a relationship that has that level of introspection, depth, accountability, like kind of like co-managing these challenges together and like growing, helping each other grow. Like, I don't think any of these 4 people are looking for that. That wouldn't be my guess.
You're right. They're happy together then.
See, that's my thing. I'm a little bit like, listen, I think Eliza's not looking for accountability from Aaron. I don't think John Henry's looking for accountability from Kat, and those two aren't interested in holding themselves accountable. Like, Kat doesn't want to hold herself accountable. Aaron B clearly is not holding himself accountable, and so therefore, I kind of think these two couples, I'm like, maybe it's fine. You got people with kind of maybe that's not the right word. People whose standards are a little bit more lax in terms of the accountability factor, and then you got 2 people who don't want to have accountability. You put that together, and maybe it's fine. Maybe that works. I mean, not that I would root for it, but maybe that is a recipe for a relationship that could function long term, because people's specific wounds or shortcomings really connect with other people's wounds and shortcomings, and so it kind of allows them to just kind of stay exactly the way they are and stay together. And again, like, this sounds really harsh. I don't want to sound like I'm just totally trash talking these 4 people. I just think that as far as what we've seen, I would say I'm seeing compatibility, not in a way that I would support, but I am seeing compatibility. That's all I would say.
It's giving dream come true for these two. They're just, because Eliza loves, do you remember in her last season, she really wanted a grand gesture. Tell me that I can't go on this date. Guess who's going to say that? Aaron B.
Yes! Exactly.
He's going to tell her, don't do these things, and he's going to have these grand gestures after these fights. He's going to get her the necklaces. He's going to take her to these amazing resorts and give her these amazing dinners, and that's what she's looking for.
I think she wants
just like with Kat. Exactly. She wants someone that is almost a little bit unaware of how to register and read social cues, like how she made out just half before Charity's date. It's like John Henry didn't even have the conversation of Olivia until Brayden gave her his rose, and then she had to stay on the beach, and then he had a convo, and she was like, I'm not accepting your apology because you just want to clear your conscience. They are so perfectly, matched for each other, and I think where me and Kelly are coming from is we're looking at dating from the context of Golden Bachelor, and that's typically how we coach the people that we work with. We want people to grow in these relationships, because relationships, change is the only constant in our lives, okay? Like, you have to have a partner that grows with you, or you grow apart. And these people getting...
Oh my God, can we have a moment for that little drop of wisdom? Jesus, did so much. You have to be growing together, or you'll grow apart. Oof, wow, okay. I'm just going to hold that one for myself.
Hold it in your heart, because I hold a lot of your sayings in my coaching practice, because I'm thinking about the fact that if these 4 people, if these, 2 couples have found each other and they're so similar and they're not changing to be with each other, this relationship is by definition has an expiration date, they will not last. And I will take bets from anybody in our audience if you feel like they're gonna last. I do not see it. They're gonna grow apart. Yeah.
I'm fluctuating. I don't know how to feel about these two. Okay, I want to hear what people have to say. What do you all think? Let us know in the comments down below. Do you think that Aaron B and Eliza will make it? Do you think John Henry and Kat will make it? Long term, what do you think about these two couples and their dynamics? Are you of the belief that because they are not wanting to push each other to grow, maybe it works? Or are you of the belief that ultimately, if you're not pushing yourselves to grow, then it's going to make you grow apart? What do you all think down below? I want to hear. I'm so curious because I can see both ways. I can really see both. I can see both things. Ooh, what an interesting conversation. By the way, if you have watched to this point in the video and you have not subscribed yet, make sure you do. It really helps us out a lot, and also make sure that you won't miss a single video of ours. We are recapping every single episode of Golden Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise. When The Bachelor starts up in January, we'll be here doing the same thing, recapping every episode. So subscribe to make sure that you don't miss it, and we will see you next week for whatever is coming next week. I don't know. What is it? Hometowns. Second hometowns. Meeting the family.
Meeting
Gerry's
the family.
hometowns.
Yeah.
We'll see you then. All right.
Bye.
Bye.